Okay, let's see here. I want to make sure that everyone knows we're live and ready for the podcast. Exciting day. I have waited for this from the first time I met you. I was
Oh,
like, I can't wait for you to get approved so we can have you on the podcast.
I'm really happy to share my, story and my experience with the application process.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right, we're live now. We're just going to go ahead and wait a little bit for people to join. Um, just so that we can, make sure that we have a good number of people. We don't have to repeat ourselves when it
Yeah.
gets really interesting. But
But
just to
this
give you an idea,
our interview will be saved, right?
of course, we're
Okay.
gonna save it because a lot of people, even when they listen to the episodes, they will come back and say, "Hey, um, is it possible for us to play this again?" So
Oh,
we always save it for people
mhm.
who will join later. So yeah,
I know.
okay,
Yeah, I know some people who do their podcast. They record first and then like edit it. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Honestly, I used to do that. Like I had a podcast called in my other life. It was called The Tales of an African Princess in America. And I would record, you know, starting out, I would record, edit everything myself. I was so excited with the process.
Uh-huh.
And I was so obsessed with the little ums and ahs. Like when you're talking, you would say I would like take those out because I'm like, oh, I don't want people to hear me say ums and. But over time, no, I just let things go.
Now you're just
I
now
just
you're
like
just
let's do it. It's part of life. Mistakes are part of life. It makes you more human if people can see that you make mistakes. So, all right,
exactly.
guys. Welcome. If you're just joining, we are waiting a little bit, like 3 more minutes for others to join so that when I introduce the amazing individual I have here, we don't have to keep doing it over and over, right? So we're waiting. I know you're in Virginia. What's the weather like right there today?
Right now. Oh, the pools just opened yesterday, so it's
Yeah.
now like summer vibe.
Uh-huh.
Everyone is ready to just go out and chill. It's very
Hmm.
hot. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Japan. Japan is very
Right.
humid. So kind of
Right. Okay.
yeah.
I mean, in Tennessee, it's like some days it's super hot, other days it's cold. It's like we're not quite sure what it is from day to day. Like right now, we have I think we're under like a tornado watch right now.
Oh,
So it's like 3 p.m. here, but outside is super dark. So one of those
mm,
things, one of those things. All right, guys, welcome. I know a lot of you are somewhere today, maybe shopping for Labor Day, getting those deals and things like that. But if you took our time to join us today, you're welcome. Today, we have an amazing, amazing individual here, Dr. Selman, and she is going to tell us amazing things about herself. But let me tell you a little bit about her, right? She is a mom, she's a wife, she's a doctor, she has 3 degrees and counting. Who knows what she's going to do next? She has a bachelor's degree in biotech and food science. And then she got an MPH from somewhere in Mongolia, where she's from. And then she went ahead to get her PhD in dental science. So she's fully loaded with degrees. And of course, she's exceptional because she's also a superstar. She is a musician, right? And so I'm super excited to have you here, Dr. Selman. And I really want everyone to get the chance to hear your amazing journey on this EB2NIW expedition, right? So welcome to the EB2NIW podcast.
thank you very much, Dr. Jose. I'm very happy to share my story, and I hope this interview will give confidence and will give some ideas.
Right.
I hope it will be useful.
Awesome. All right. So let's start from the very beginning. So when I introduced you, I kind of talked about the fact that I talked about your educational degrees. I talked about bachelor's, master's, PhD. But tell us a little bit more about you. If someone were to just like, hey, I want to know like 5 amazing things about Dr. Selman. What are the top things top 3 things that you want people to know about you?
Oh, about me, I'm such a foodie. I love food. And it's so funny. I think I'm that kind of a person. Like I'm okay with talking to one, but when it comes
Right.
to like when it's like social context, I'm really awkward. I
Mm,
feel like I have social anxiety. I can perform, definitely. I can go on a stage, I can sing, but I don't think I'm that open.
right. Right.
I love to stay indoor. I just love sticking to my home.
Mm,
And yeah, I would say just I'm a very down to earth and just
yeah.
I like enjoying simple things.
I appreciate that because I love to stay at home as well,
Mhm.
and I'm actually a foodie. I would say that, right? I enjoy good food, and so I can definitely relate to you on those things. Okay, so we talked a little bit about your career and the
Mhm.
fact that you didn't touch on the fact that you sing. Tell us a little bit about your career as a singer. Um, when we had our first uh consultation, right? That was
Mhm.
something that I picked up on and I got super excited. How did the singing thing start?
So when I was an undergrad student, that was like sophomore year. I win a title of Miss University of Mongolia,
Oh
and
wow.
it's actually a different competition. It's not like similar to those Miss competitions. It's more about like giving presentations and so on. That was the very first my public appearance, and then the following year when I was 17, my friends, they really encouraged me to challenge myself in singing competition.
All right.
And to my surprise, I ended up winning I was the very first Grand Prix award winner of that national competition. So you can imagine it as the American Idol of Mongolia. So
Right.
with that, that was life-changing moment. It really opened doors to numerous opportunities, not only music industry but also other creative endeavors. So for
Mhm.
me, I wouldn't say like it was all about winning prizes. I think it's just part of us trying to discover ourselves, and it's part of our personal growth. When we are teenagers, we like to try different stuff.
Right.
I used to write poems and so on. I think
Mhm.
it's just part of that. I really didn't aim to become a singer. I think it just ended
Yeah.
up
And
being a singer.
and getting that kind of fame at such an early age, you shared with me that one of the prizes was visiting the US and you met Britney Spears. Tell us about that. So that was the first
Oh
time you were ever in the US?
no, I told you about that.
Yeah, I
um,
remember that.
that was my
Maybe not
first.
meeting, but you guys were supposed to go to like a concert to hear her
Yeah,
sing
yeah.
or something.
We went to Britney Spears concert. That was actually in Paris.
Oh
So yeah,
wow. Okay,
yeah.
so that was not in the US. So are you trying
Not
to say that when you moved to the US on the F-2 visa with your spouse, was that the first time you had been to the US?
No, I visited US before, but this is my first time like actually staying for a long period of time and trying to, settle down in here.
Yeah, okay. All right. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're from Mongolia and then you schooled in Japan as well. And then you moved to the US. Why Japan? How did you end up there for your MPH?
So actually I majored in biotechnology and I specialized in vitro plant tissue culturing. So my work revolved around, culturing plant in controlled laboratory environment,
Right.
creating artificial soil and so on. But
Mhm.
my country, I was born and raised in Mongolia, and our country, our capital city especially, it's a subject to high air pollution. So there
Mm,
was really a necessity to build occupational and environmental health, and also there was a lack of evidence-based data on air pollution. So that really prompted me to shift my career from biotech to public health. And then
mm,
for my MPH, I did it in Mongolia, and my research area focused on two different areas: indoor
okay.
air pollution and faculty development. Then
Okay.
I received Japanese government scholarship, so that's when
Scholarship
I
in
ended
Japan.
up doing a PhD in Japan. And it's really interesting. I graduated from School of Dentistry, and whenever I
Right.
say this, people immediately assume that I'm a dentist.
You're a dentist,
However,
yeah.
yeah, however, my department, it was called International and Community Oral Health, and our professors were from diverse backgrounds, not
Mhm.
only dentists, but public health experts, medical doctors. And it's because the importance of oral health, how it's associated, how it determines our quality of life, and
Right.
how it's linked to chronic illnesses, systemic
Right.
diseases. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. I think that's another area where I feel like we share a little bit of a, commonality is with oral health because I got my PhD, looking at periodontal disease. And so as soon as
Mhm.
I got on that consultation with you, I was like, yes, finally, someone is
Yeah,
doing something related to this. And
exactly. Like,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Exactly like what you said. I agree with it because I'm from public health sector, and I felt like we barely discussed about dental issues. Because
Exactly.
at the time, it was my first time hearing dental public health. So I think it's a very interesting topic actually. So, yeah.
Yeah. So guys, if you're not taking anything out of this conversation, here's two things that I'm on, I love already. You can get your green card from F-2 to green card. You can also, learn from this conversation that anything that happens in your mouth, with your gum, your teeth, whatever, can affect your entire body systemically, right? You can, some of the endeavor that you talked about for EB2 was just the link between the oral health and cardiovascular disease, respiratory disease, stuff like that. So it's really important, guys, to make sure that you're taking care of your, everything in your oral cavity. So very important. All right. So tell us about moving to the US as a dependent of a student. I know that your husband, he's getting his, he got his engineering degree. He's moved on to, do other things right now.
Mhm.
But what was that transition like moving from Japan to the US?
Oh, it was a lot actually. So culturally, it's very different. But okay, in my case, why I came to US with F2 visa, as you just mentioned, and one unfortunate thing about this visa is that you can't work basically. They
Exactly.
don't allow any employment opportunities.
Right.
And we stumbled upon your book and your book, which provided insights on how to obtain green card upon under the EB2NIW category.
Yeah.
So reading your book was very helpful, actually. The way how it's written was easy to read and very practical. It was very relatable. And I immediately, gained confidence and I really wanted to know more about it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Very good.
Uh,
So if you're here on F2 visa, good news, you can get your your green card approved even as a dependent. You can apply. I always tell people you can apply from outside the US. You don't even actually need to be in the US to apply. But
yeah.
let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about like the things that made you stand out for this type of opportunity, right? We
Mhm.
know that to get a green card approved under the EB2 NIW category, you have to have an advanced degree, and we've talked about the 3 degrees. Um,
Mhm.
we also know that you have to propose something. There has to be something that the US needs that you can provide based on
Yeah.
your training, right? So when it came to your endeavor, you read the book, but you've also done a lot of things. We talked about the fact that you're also exceptional in the music world, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, when it came to deciding what to propose for your EB2, what
Mhm.
did you propose and why did you choose that?
So in my case, okay, first thing, I did not know from where to start because
Mm,
my background it's not just about one sector.
right.
I've been managing dual careers and I did not know whether I need to include both of them. Like, shall I
Mm,
just stick to my, profession, like is it only about MPH and PhD, or
right.
shall I also mention other achievements that I've
Right.
been, that I've gained during these years, right? So first thing I did, I met you. I was really happy that I was able to meet you through a Zoom call. And after that consultation, we came up with an outline, like a frame. I knew exactly what I had to include.
Right.
And basically, I prioritized 3 things, very simple 3 things. First thing, demonstrate like what kind of skills you have, what kind of abilities you have, demonstrate your advanced degrees, prove that you're eligible. And second, it was outlining my proposal, as you just said,
Right.
uh, why you're important, how it's beneficial to the United States, basically.
Exactly.
And then third, I also provided on my past experiences and what kind of awards I received, what kind of significant achievements do I have. And then lastly, you know, on the way, while you're drafting the petition, anyways, you'll be mentioning every achievements you've done. So at the very end, everything you mentioned has to be attached as an evidence. So one thing about, in my case, you know, I sent my petition at the end of July. And then in December, I received again a request from them asking for additional evidence. Was a degree verification. So I think if a person who has never ever studied in the US, you need to have assessment, verify that your degree is equivalent to United States standard, basically. And then I think you should also include it as an evidence as part of it. In my case, I didn't. So they had to again contact me and ask for it. And then I received my approval notice on April Fool's Day. And I'm really happy that it wasn't a prank.
Okay, so you submitted July of 2023, right? And you got approved April of 2024.
Yeah.
So this was without premium processing. You didn't have to.
Without premium processing.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you've touched on a lot of things here. Let's kind of break it down. So you talked about the fact that you're exceptional in different fields, even within your career, right? Your PhDs in dental. Then you had this biotech experience, food technology. You know, all of this stuff. One of the things that you mentioned that really stuck out to me is the fact that you included other things that you had worked on, even though they were unrelated to your proposal.
Exactly.
Yeah, you were proposing in dental, you know, dental science and how, you know, the oral.
The major focus was the proposal was about basically, I want to focus on dental public health because it's going to improve the other, you know, it's going to prevent all these NCDs. Hold on, I'm sorry, my computer's battery is a bit slow. Dr. Rosie, can I quickly grab my phone? Just
yes, please go ahead. While you're gone, I'm going to give people a recap. Okay, so if you're just joining us, this is Dr. Tselmuun, and she is leading us through the process of how she got her green card through the EB2NIW category, or she's been approved for her green card through the EB2NIW category. And you know, one of the things that she's told us is, of course, she has 3 degrees. She has a PhD. She applied, you know, using her doctoral research, dental science, and how that affects systemic diseases and things like that. But she also had experiences outside of that, studying other things. So if you're out there and you're wondering, okay, I've done different things, how do I incorporate that into my EB2NIW application? You can, because it's the people who have been successful in other endeavors that would say, hey, I want to propose this new thing, and people will actually listen to them, right? If you've never done anything and been successful, you have a hard time convincing people that you can really achieve those things, right? So again, we're going to have you know, a chance to ask Dr. Selman some questions. If you have any questions, put them in the comment. We're going to ask her questions. But for right now, she's just bringing us up to speed, you know, about the little things that made her application stand out, right? So she talked about if you have a degree outside the US, you've never schooled in the US, you definitely have to get those degrees evaluated, make sure that they're equivalent of a US degree. There's so many credible services that offer that. You know, you can look into that and get that done. That's one of the things that you have to include on your application. But I think she's back. Let's go ahead and have her tell us a little bit more about that, Dr. Selman.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back.
There was a technical issue. I'm very sorry, but thank you for waiting. So yeah,
this is what I was talking about life. Life happens, right? And these are like the ums and ahs that happen. Let's just roll with it and just keep going.
So exactly as you said, of course, I've been focusing, the majority of the drafting really focused on the importance of dental public health, because people don't know why it's important, but it's actually it's all related with the incidences of all the diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, respiratory also illnesses. So I really try to emphasize, bring out what's the current state of United States regarding to these issues, right? And then why there is a demand, and these articles, these research is also supporting this idea that it's important. And that's, I'm the majority of the proposal focused on dental, my proposal basically dental public health. But then I also included, so if you are someone who ever gave an interview on your local magazine, newspaper, you need to also put it as an evidence, like, hey, this is what I did. I gave an interview about this topic, and then translate it into English. And that's what I also did. And I've been volunteering in several areas. So I also included every evidences. Oh, when I say evidence, it's not only, it can be anything, literally anything. So I included emails, that corresponding emails is. So it's a very practical thing. You don't need to look specific things. It can be simple evidences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the fact that, sometimes I get clients who say, hey, I have a degree in economics, but I'm also a good athlete, right? I got awards for like running. I got awards for whatever sport it is that they're really engaged in, right? Because if you think about yourself, you're human, right? You may have your career, but you're also passionate about other things. So one of the questions that we get a lot is, if I have awards in other things outside of what I'm proposing, should I include it in my application, right? Now that you've done that, what do you think about that? Including other things. I know you have like album release, you have albums, you have things that come from your career.
Let me see my list of evidences, so just that I can give you an example. So here are the list of things that I've included. Definitely recommendation letters, and then after that, emphasized awards and accomplishments. Within my accomplishments, I included, for example, one of the songs that I collaborated with my friend. Actually, it was used one of those Netflix show. It's called Outer Banks Netflix show. So they used our song. So I included that as part of the accomplishments. I mentioned two movies that I've played. I included 2 album release, and if you ever did if you were an ambassador, you can also include it. So, for example, I was an executive global ambassador of a university in Japan. So I'm still continuing to do that. So I included it. List of publications of abstract, list of citations of my publications. And I'm very happy that after PhD, I've been working at Japanese university. But during that time, I had tremendous amounts to work with several societies. So it was a very good thing to, I did not know that it's going to be really useful in the future, but I had to mention that I have full membership in professional societies. And okay, let me see. Oh, so within the volunteer activities and news media, I included almost 10 exhibit. So I even included that I did speaker. So for example, nowadays people do lots of live interviews, or just they want to do small podcasts. So if you ever give podcast interview, you can mention that one too. And certifications. So if you have any trainings, any certifications, you have to include it. And for example, even during so when I was working during my master's degree, I was working for KOICA, which is Korea International Cooperation Agency. So during that period of time, we were organizing small workshops. So if you also organized workshops, or if you already graduated from small workshops, you can also include that
Right.
if you
Right.
completed such certifications. And yeah, anything
Okay.
that I missed?
Let's talk a little bit about your recommenders, right? Because I feel
Mhm.
like recommenders are critical for getting your green card through these categories, right? I've only known one person
Mhm.
had zero recommenders who got approved. So it seems like
Mhm.
for the most part, recommendations are really important. How
Mhm.
many recommenders did you have, and why did you choose those persons for your, this type of green card application?
Okay. In my case, I had 5 recommendation letters, and
Okay.
I tried to choose each one. No, I tried to choose people who can emphasize my different sides, my different strengths.
Right.
Not. I don't want to stick to only one organization that I've been working with, but I'm trying to approach different people that I've met.
Right.
Even that I met. One of the recommendation letter was from a professor that I invited him to do a speaker in our conference.
Hmm.
So I approached him,
Okay.
and usually I don't know how other people do, but in my case, I
Right.
dra- I draft the recommendation letter first. Like
Yeah.
first, of course, I'm gonna ask them, hey, can you please do me a favor? Can you
Of
give me a
course.
recommendation? Then I draft the whole thing and send
Mhm.
it to them. They can edit it as much as they want, and that's basically what I did. So in my case, I would choose someone that I know from my clothes. Not someone who's just with a higher uh, title. Not it doesn't matter.
Be a connection, right?
Yeah, title really doesn't matter. I think it has to be someone who knows you very close, and
Mm.
yeah, and try to cover different sides of you. In my case, I would say this. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then you chose your recommenders. It's important to what you talked about drafting that recommendation is really important
Mhm.
because your recommenders may
Usually
not
they're
have,
busy.
yeah, they're
They
very busy and most likely
usually,
have not heard about EB2, right?
yeah.
So you kind of have to guide them as to what you want
Mm,
them to sign, right? And of course, when you draft it, they're free to edit, right?
mm.
Did you have them sign these on letterhead documents or was it just how did that get back to you?
Yeah, I had to. I actually requested them to be on official letterhead.
Right.
That's crucial. I think that's important.
I think it
And
carries a lot more weight. Yeah, definitely. When
yeah,
someone puts that kind of and did you get their CVs as well? You submit
exactly.
those
That's
as
what I was
well?
about to what I was about to mention. So I think CV was something surprising. Actually, I did not know that we needed to ask CV of our recommenders. It's something that I did for the first time.
Right.
But anyways, they sent
Yeah.
all
I
CV.
think recommendation letters for most people is the
Mhm.
hiccup that they have with this process because a lot of people asking people for recommendation is a little bit out of their nature. You know what I mean? It's like you're begging for something. And so a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of times when I tell them you have to get recommendations, they're like, from who? Like they feel like this is so difficult. So guys, you have to get people to recommend you, right? If you're so special at what you do, people need to say that you are. And then when you ask people for recommendation, it's also helpful if you can give them a draft of what this is about, right? Because if you don't give them a draft, this is going to take so long for you to get these letters back. People are going to have a hard time just writing about you from scratch. So if you can, definitely write out something for them to, of course, go ahead and edit and sign, send that back to you. So what was the I know that then you contacted us for the review, and that's kind of how we got into, we did the consultation and then we reviewed your application
Yeah.
just to
So,
make sure.
yeah. So once I got the outline, I think I worked on my petition 2 or 3 months,
Right,
um, and then before submitting, I had to ask for review. I think
right,
yeah, one of your services,
right.
and I would say that was crucial investment. I think
Yes, yes,
because you really helped to improve the structure of my petition, the tone, how I'm writing it, right? And sometimes people miss points. and
Exactly.
they forget certain things. And you really brought up, specific things that I totally forgot, and you included it. And I would say anyone who's not sure what to do, these are two strategic steps. One, have a consultation before starting. Have a consultation, and then
Right.
draft. Then ask for a review. Once
Mhm.
review is done, finalize it, and then
Exactly.
send it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would recommend these two.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up because a lot of people reach out to us and they say, "Hey, how do you guys help with this process, right? What do you really do?" So, we
Mhm.
have several products and services that can help you get your green card, the application going so you can submit an application putting your best foot forward, right? She talked about a consultation. Consultation, if you're considering, do I need a consultation or not? Most likely you do, right? Because there are certain things or certain perspectives that you just don't have if you don't,
Mhm.
you're thinking about it. "Oh, should I do this? Should I do?" A lot of times when I have consultations with people, they've been thinking about applying for 2 years. And then they finally said, "You know what, I'm tired. I'm just going to consult," right? Don't wait that long, guys. She talked about the fact that it's an investment in yourself, right? You have to bet on yourself. If you want to get a green card through EB2 or EB1A, it's going to be an investment, but it's one that most likely will yield good results for you. One of the things that we do is, yes, we help with consultations, we brainstorm on your endeavor. We also have services where we can write your petition if you need our editorial services, or like Dr. Selman did, if you write it yourself, because I believe that a lot of people can indeed write this themselves. You can do it yourself, and that's why we created the Do It Yourself Toolkit. But even if
Exactly. I think,
you're doing it yourself, we can also help you review it. Go ahead, doctor.
yeah, I was gonna mention that I think there is a belief that we must have sponsors and we must hire someone, lawyers, to submit our
Mhm.
petition. And
Yeah.
I only realized that I can do it on my own after reading your book. And I think I believe it was after your consultation, you provided with sample of
Exactly.
letters and
Yeah.
templates. I think whoever is, doubting whether I should have consultation, or maybe you can even read the book. I think your book also provided samples. I
Yes,
might
we
be
have
wrong,
several.
but anyways, after your consultations, I received that was also very helpful, like reading templates and then having some idea and then
Right.
incorporating and changing it to your own. That was very useful.
Okay. Let's talk about something else that people really get caught up on is RFEs, right?
Mhm.
RFEs are the worst. Let's just put it out there. They are the worst. You get an RFE, and Dr. Selman, when you got an RFE, honestly, your RFE was just like one of those things where they just say, "Hey, bring one more thing." But for some people, when they get RFEs, it's like 12 pages of tell us how you have national importance, tell us how this has merit, tell us how. So when I saw your RFE, I was just like, this is something that can be fixed. Like it's super easy, but it's still not an easy thing to get an RFE. Like, how did you feel when you got that RFE? And was it like, oh my God, this is another step? And what did you do after that?
It was it was intimidating. I was really scared. I was like, wait, what? What is that? Anyways, I had to clarify two things.
Mhm,
First, as I mentioned before, if
mhm.
you're someone who graduated from abroad, not from the US, you have to verify every degree so that once they receive, so that they will get an idea, okay, this is equivalent to our standards, so he or she is fine. Second, they asked me, probably they were confused that I was a dentist, but I did not
You
include
did,
any
yeah,
license or anything because
yeah,
I'm from dental public. So I had
yeah.
to again clarify, elaborate what is a dental public. Like when I say I'm a public health researcher in dentistry, what do I mean? Again, I had to like nicely elaborate and explain. But mine wasn't that long. I think it was just to be honest, one page, and then
On one page,
attached to the already assessed, verified letters that
yeah,
I got from the agency. So they have a separate agency who evaluate your degrees.
of course.
So yeah, with one letter, additional verification documents. That's what I sent. So yeah, It's something. It's kind of it's nervous when you receive that,
It is
but yeah,
nerve-wracking.
don't be
Yes.
scared. Believe in yourself. And I think once, yeah, just using the keywords, I think that's crucial. Just use the keywords, see what
Mhm.
kind of keywords and phrases they're using on their letter, and try to
Exactly.
also, include, mention those keywords.
Yeah. So you guys, if you're just joining, EB2NIW, you can get a US green card when you apply for this. It's merit based. So it's not really for everyone, unfortunately. But I think that if you hear early enough about what the requirements are, you can actually strategize to figure out what do I need to put in place. Especially people who are starting out, like who are students right now, you have so much opportunity to boost your profile, make it look like what she talked about, volunteering, professional societies, making sure you're active. A lot of us just go through school and just want to be as I don't want to be seen, I don't want to be heard. I just want to face my degree, and that's fine. But if you want to use that degree to get so much more, you're gonna have to put yourself out there, right? And then we touched on the fact that you don't need a sponsor, you don't need an employer for this. You can actually do it yourself. Now, that's how I started. I started telling everyone, you can do this yourself. There's this pathway, you can do it yourself. But then people started asking, do I need a lawyer for this? Now, this is not to knock on lawyers. Definitely, if you've broken the law, you need representation, guys. If you just need extra help and you feel like, you know what, I want to get legal representation, of course, do that, right? You're also investing in yourself as well. That's also one of the ways that you can. But if you have the time and you're fairly good at writing, you can do the research, you can put stuff together. This is certainly a pathway that you can do yourself. If you want people like us, who are editors, to get in there, write the petition for you, do the research for you, save time. Dr. Selman said she spent 2 to 3 months just putting things together. On our side, we do everything in a month, right? From when you give us all the evidence that we need, we're able to help you put that petition in record time so you're able to submit quickly. So these are the services that we offer. Get help. I would say if anyone were to ask me, what should I do first? I would say get help, right? Do your due diligence,
Yeah.
read up about it. Don't just take my word for it. Like I'm saying, oh, this pathway exists. Go online. The information is there. Read up about it. Get help if you need help. Get help as quickly as possible, right? Some people tell me, oh, I just want to write my petition before I get help. Why? If you do the consultation, you might realize that you're going in a different direction when you should be talking about something else. So you'd have to do the work twice. So get help as quickly as possible, get help as many times as you need it, and so that you can get things done the right way, right? And of course, nobody guarantees that you're going to get an approval the first time. I've had clients who have applied, even using lawyers, right? Lawyers don't have people working in USCIS, unfortunately. Everybody writes a petition hoping that it gets approved, but you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward. If you get an RFE, respond to it using like she said, the keywords that they're looking for. And I've also had people who got denied the first time and put that application back in and got an approval. So you want to make sure that you're getting the best that you can for your application. You want to make sure that you're getting as many tools as you need. Reach out if you need help, and we're here to help you. All right, doctor, can you talk to us about um, let's talk about life in as someone who has lived in different countries now, right? Before we go to the questions, let's talk about easy stuff. So you've lived in Japan, and I've been to Japan, and it was amazing. There's another thing that we bonded over, just the organization that is Japan, right? And so you've lived there, you now live in
Yeah.
the US. What are some of the things that you really, really love about the US? If people are like thinking, do I want to relocate to the US? What are some of the pros, I would say, that you're enjoying right now just living here?
So okay, so I would say first, when it comes to Japan, it's like polar opposite, polar opposite of US. So Japan more emphasizes collective harmony, respect, and they have to follow social orders. They have many unwritten rules, how to
Yeah.
talk, how to express,
Oh,
and
yeah.
when I came to US, the very first thing that I immediately loved is that you will never ever feel like an outsider. Like for example, in
Mm,
Japan, uh, although I looked like Japanese because I look like just a typical Japanese, but I'm not.
yeah.
I can speak Japanese, but you
Oh, you
will
can?
always feel like an alien. You always feel like an outsider. I felt here. America simply is the country of immigrants. So
Mm.
it's beautiful. And US is more about individualistic. You can express yourself,
It's
and
a little
it's
more
about your
freedom here.
personal
Yeah.
growth, and it's
Yeah.
about personal freedom. It's very
Yeah.
opposite
Yeah.
from Japan. So I
Yeah.
think here in the United States, once if you already know what you want, then just do research, dig for
Yeah.
it, and go for it. You will achieve in whatever really put an effort into it. So I'm loving it here.
All right. People have questions for you, by the way. So I absolutely love Japan. And I agree with you with all the social rules and even unwritten rules. Um, I remember getting on the train with my husband and just talking. It's like we were just talking and we didn't realize that other people weren't talking. Nobody was talking. It was just the two of us. And we were going on about just like the trip
Yeah,
and things like that. And then it wasn't until we got into a taxi and we
yeah,
saw this little leaflet and it said, don't talk on trains. Even in the elevator, I just keep talking. And people keep looking at me like, but I didn't get it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
we love it.
So
We love
in
Japan. It's a
Japan,
good place to visit.
it's more of it's perfect country for visiting, but when it
Yeah.
comes to living and working, it's a different. I feel like it's a complete different planets. That's how I feel.
Right.
You can't be loud. You can't talk. You shouldn't express too much. You have to
Right.
talk silently. Even your keyboard shouldn't make noises. Your phone
Wow.
must be in silence. You should
Mm.
keep certain distance with even if you're
Yeah.
standing in a public transportation, you have to be cautious, and it's all about not bothering anyone
Others.
who's
Yeah. Yeah.
around you.
Get that. I mean, you can't eat on the street. Like
Yeah,
it's very it's a different society and I appreciate that, and it also makes you appreciate wherever you're coming from as well. All right, so let me ask you some of the
yeah.
interesting questions that people have. Someone is asking, and I want to say her name, right? Oh yeah, someone is saying good to know magazine features really count for this. And okay, someone said I watched a video where petitioner was approached without any letter of recommendation. I'm thinking they're saying was approved without any letter of recommendation. I also know one person who was approved, but he had like a stellar profile. He had so many other things that made him stand out. Dr. Selman, I actually think that you can apply for EB1A, honestly. Just thinking about your profile right now, I feel like you do have what it takes to apply for EB1A, if you ever think about that. Okay, someone is asking, does the recommendation, and that's Tola Mems. Hi, Tola Mems. He's asking, does the recommendation have to be a paper letter or an email? So in your case, what did you use?
Oh, I don't think it has to be original. I just scanned it. So
Yeah,
scanned documents was fine. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Okay, so
yeah.
you can,
Everything was. We did not send any original document. Even our
right,
degrees, it was all scanned and printed
scan,
out
yeah.
basically. So yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
very good
so
question.
you
Yeah.
can definitely send them an email with the draft attached as a Microsoft document, and then they can put that on letterhead, they can sign it, and then scan it back to you. That works. Okay, someone is asking, did you apply with your master's or PhD? Shahan
So
is asking.
uh-huh. As I said, my petition first section emphasized on what kind of skills I have. So that means I'm demonstrating every degree that I earned, starting from my
Exactly.
bachelor's degree, which was biotechnology. I mentioned
Yeah,
my biotechnology, then my MPH, my master's,
right.
and then PhD. So you can mention everything. You don't need to, skip anything.
Yeah. And guys, remember that you don't have to have a PhD for this, right? Remember that. She just happens to have a PhD, which is great. The
Oh
more
yeah.
degrees you have, of course, the better it looks for this kind of thing that is merit based, right? But the requirement is a bachelor's degree plus 5 years of work experience. We definitely encourage people when we take on clients, we want them to have at least a master's. And the reason why we're doing that is because
Mhm.
it's getting really competitive, this type of green card application, right? You're putting in an application with people who have a lot more. So we want you to really, really stand out as much as you can. So we like people with a master's, but hey, it's she applied with all using all of her degrees and she was able to show that. All right. Another question is saying, can an employer file for you? So this type of application doesn't require your employer. However, your employer can put in a green card application for you. Some people ask me, can my employer put in an application and I as well put in an application for EB2NIW? Yeah, you can apply for a green card in as many ways as you qualify, right? It's your money, you're spending on yourself, right? Okay. Let me ask you another question here. Can I still do this route if an employer is willing? Oh, we just answered that. If an employer is willing to file for you, yes, you can. I know people who have put in their sisters and brothers in the US have filed for them. That takes forever. They've moved to the US and then they've gotten their degrees and then they want to file EB2. You can do that as well. At the end of the day, when you only need one green card, and if you're approved under one category, every other thing is closed down. All right. How did you demonstrate your endeavor, considering you did not have an employment in the US, Dr. Selman? Someone is saying, Boss Captain Captiano, he's asking, how did you demonstrate that you were able to advance this endeavor? Like, does EB2NIW require you to have a job? How are you able to navigate that aspect?
Okay. Mhm. Okay. Please hold on. Let me just bring out my phone.
Definitely, definitely. While she's doing that, one of the things that we know this type of green card is you don't need to have a job. So we've helped people who are in like places like Ghana, Nigeria. They don't live
Um,
here. They don't have
Excuse me,
jobs
Dr.
here.
Ozzy. I didn't hear the part because the
Okay.
internet is kind of low. Okay,
So let
hold
me
on.
ask.
Let me bring up my petition and just
Okay.
share what kind of subdivisions I have.
Exactly. Exactly. And while you're bringing that, let me know when you have that. But what I'm saying is, you don't have to have a job lined out just yet. Remember, people are applying, they're still students, right? They're applying. So they're saying, this is what I can do with my training, with my expertise. This is what I have the capacity to do. Guys, if you follow us, Dr. Selman, actually, we shared her success story a couple weeks ago on our Instagram page, EB2NIW. And if you want to read more about the knickknacks, the things that made her application really stand out, this is the post that talks about that. But one of the ways that you can stand out, if you haven't started that job yet, is to say, hey, I have the training, I have this work experience, here's what I've done in the past. Because success in previous endeavors shows that if you propose new things in the future, you most likely will be successful, right? You can use that. You can also talk about just the tools, the skills that you have that will make you really good at what you're proposing, right? So if you have publications, if you have citations, if you have membership in professional society, certifications, relevant volunteering, right? Showing that you've done things that makes you, someone who can achieve that endeavor. That also looks good, right? So that's something that you can also think about. Dr. Salman, you ready?
Um, okay. Yes, I'm ready. I'm gonna mention what kind of subdivisions I had. Just gonna read out the titles, okay? First,
Okay.
advanced degrees, master's degrees. Then, second section, my proposed endeavor has both substantial merit and national importance. First,
Okay.
about the national importance. So within national importance, I have 5 subdivisions. First one, I'm mentioning about association between oral health and NCD, non-communicable diseases. Second,
Mm-hmm.
I'm discussing about prevalence and impact of these non-communicable diseases in the US.
Okay.
Third, I'm talking about health disparities in oral care. And then fourth section, I'm talking about prevalence of dental caries in USA. Then
Mm-hmm.
fifth part, how their government is funding initiatives in line with my proposed endeavor, basically. And
Yeah.
then I'm summarizing summary of benefits
Mm.
to the United States of America.
Okay.
And then I'm talking about how I am well positioned to advance the proposed endeavor, basically.
Okay.
So I am talking about my educational training required to advance this proposal. And then my record of exceptional skills.
Okay.
And then I'm talking about my research publications, what kind of abstracts I have, mentioning it, and how many citations for my publications, and then elaborating what kind of certificates I have, what kind of presentations I've given, and
Right.
discussing what kind of professional societies I am a member. I'm a member to what kind of societies, associations,
Right.
and then I'm gonna emphasize about the awards and accomplishments. I included voluntary experiences. Now to the third section, my work experience and prior achievements. So in my case, I included I titled it "My Contribution to Higher Medical Education." So it is something that I did in my past work.
Right.
And then I'm talking about my contribution to health inequality. And
Mm.
then again, I'm summarizing at the end of that chapter, like on balance, it would be benefit to the United States to waive the job offer and labor certification requirements. And
Right.
then I'm mentioning mm, welfare and economic benefits of addressing this issue that I'm proposing in the USA. And
Okay.
then what kind of need urgency of my proposal outweighs. And then the last part is basically again emphasizing how I'm important. It's actually, I think it's one of the things that throughout drafting the petition, I felt really weird because I'm constantly talking about myself. So I never in my life imagined like I'll be talking this much, like how important, how skillful,
Right.
how amazing I
Yeah.
am. So probably many of the petitioners will feel
Yeah.
that way when you're
Awkward.
drafting,
Yeah.
but that
Yeah.
is like must to be a
Exactly.
thing. And when you're drafting a petition, you must emphasize how skillful, how talented you
Right.
are, and what kind of accomplishments you made. And you can include different areas.
Exactly. We once wrote a petition, and when we delivered it to the client, she was like, "Oh my God, like no one has written about me this well."
I
Just
can't
really
hear you, Dr.
praising
Rosie.
me. Can you guys hear me? Let's see. Give us a thumbs up if you can hear us. Can you guys still hear us
I'm
on
sorry,
Instagram?
I can't hear you. Maybe it's my
Hear
computer.
me? Okay, can you guys hear us on Instagram? If you're on Instagram, can you hear us? Give us a thumbs up if you can hear us on Instagram. Let's see. I may be experiencing the same thing. I can hear you perfectly, but it looks like our Instagram might be a little bit glitchy right now. Can you hear me, Dr. Selman? Okay, our manager says everyone's audio is fine. Um, can you still not hear me? Can you hear me? I'm not quite sure. Oh yeah, everyone says they can. So there's still people who can hear us. All right, let me go on answering people's questions. I know it's almost 4 and we promised that this will be an hour. Let me see if I can answer a little bit more questions before, let's see. I may have lost some questions here. Someone talked about, I think I read that shortly. Someone said, how do I use, can you hear me, Dr. Selman? No, I don't think she can. I'm going to send her a message. Maybe I'll ask our manager to send her a message just to let her know. Maybe she can exit and come back in, see if that's helpful for her, just moving forward. But somebody was asking if I have an employment opportunity or something like that, if I have an employment letter or I've been promised an employment, how do I use that to my benefit in my application, right? You can talk about the fact that people are requesting your work, people are requesting your expertise. Yes, if I have an employment offer, how do we use that to our benefit when filing for an application? You can talk about the fact that, hey, I'm so important that people are actually requesting for my work. So it could be, hey, you're having a conversation with a recruiter and they say, hey, we can offer you this job, but you just don't have your green card yet, right? Or someone is reaching out to you to say, hey, this thing that you developed, how can you, how can you how can I have it so I can use it to solve, for solutions in my own system, right? If you have those kind of emails coming in, or if you have evidence that people are asking and requesting for your expertise, that definitely looks good on your application, right? And even an offer letter definitely looks good because you're one step ahead. You don't need to have you don't need to have employment for this, but you actually do have people reaching out to you. I think that that's very, very good for this application. Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. Would you recommend starting with the kit or consultation? That's a great question because a lot of people buy the kit sometimes and they come back and say, I don't have the time to write this thing, right? So for clarity's sake, if I were you, I would do a consultation first because in our kit, let me explain what our toolkit is. Hey, doctor, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yay! Okay. Someone is asking if he should start with the toolkit or with a consultation. And I'm just saying, if I were the one, I would do a consultation because that would give more clarity as to what you should be writing. And then you can get samples if you want, right? I was once a student in the US, so I understand the finances of a student. And that's why our toolkits have remained at where they have the longest, right? We try to make sure that we have services that cater to everyone. But I think that there's a level of clarity and your questions being answered that you will get with a consultation that you may not get with just reading a toolkit or reading material online, right? But what do you think, doctor? Would you recommend that one do the toolkit or the consultation or both?
I would say consultation, starting with the consultation is a really good way to start because in my case, I was full of doubts. Like I did not know from where to start, even when it comes to the whole process, because petition, like drafting the petition and submitting is one step. And I wanted to understand the whole process. And when it comes to forms, I also wanted to clarify what kind of forms do I need to fill out? How should I fill it out? And in my case, I'm not a single person. I have a family. I have people who's also depending. So many questions around the petition really comes up. So I think during the consultation, you will realize how many other things you probably didn't even thought about it. So I think starting with the consultation is a really good idea.
Okay. Another person is saying, Shahan is saying, if I don't have any publications, but have a master's degree and working on multiple papers currently, can I be eligible for application?
Still doing her master's degree, but
So
doesn't have publication.
I don't know if he's a man or a woman, but he has master's degree, but no publication. So I think one thing that's important, and you can get this clarity with the consultations as well, is that not every occupation requires publication, right? So if you're not a researcher, people are not looking for you to have publications. There are other ways that you can show that you stand out outside of publications. Publication is one way of showing you stand out, but it's not the only way. So imagine if you're a data scientist, right, who's working in a company, you're not researching anything, you're not writing any papers, but you can show your certifications, you can show some of the projects you worked on, some of the achievements on those projects, the impact of those things. So the metrics are kind of different from field to field. If you look at some of our success stories, we've definitely helped people who don't have publications. But as a rule of thumb, if you're going to say that you're a researcher, right, then you need to have publication is the currency of research. But if you're not a researcher, you're in other fields, we can talk about other things that you've done to help you stand out. All right. Let's see. Can I use just one publication for my application? I think this kind of, we have clients who have done that in the past, but we are able to see other things. Like your application really needs to be strong. If you don't have a lot of publications and you're a researcher, can you show other things? Can you show relevant volunteering? Can you show work experience? We have to build the case around that one publication that you have. All right, doctor, she says, do I need an award if I have a job and about 5 recommendation letters, including one from my employer? Do I need an award?
I think in my case, awards, you can also, if you don't have any awards, how about achievements? How about achievements?
Achievements,
Achievements
yes.
can.
Yeah. Because guys, remember that this category of green cards is not for everyone. It's for like the top people are top in their fields. And USCIS is really trying to see how good of an expert are you in your field, right? And they've given us so many examples of how we can stand out. And they say, just show us in 3 ways, right? Now, when we work with people, we want them to have more than 3 ways to stand out. Dr. Selman had like multiple ways. She had awards, publications, citations, recommendations, certifications. You had a lot. You done volunteering. Honestly, you had, that's why I say, oh, you could actually do EB1A with your profile, right? If you want to take a risk, spend more money anyway. But I think that if awards is just another one way of showing you stand out. Most times we tell our clients, hey, go judge an event. It's summertime. There are lots and lots of science fairs going on in every city, and they're always looking for judges. Can you judge something? Can you review other people's work, right?
Yeah.
Can you join professional societies and actually make meaningful impact there? Can you go talk on a podcast? Go speak about something that you know, right? Have you been invited at a webinar or a roundtable of panelists as a subject matter expert? So again, awards is one way of showing you stand out, but you can have other ways of showing you stand out. And if you have enough time to kind of build out your case, we definitely during a consultation, we can tell you specific things that you need to do, specific professional societies you need to join, specific certifications in your field, right? That could help you boost your application. All right, let's take a few more questions. Can you give the link so that I can evaluate? I'm not sure what that question is about. Okay, what are the chances when the case officer denied a case because he said the job has a substantial merit and would favor the employer rather than national interests or national importance? And this is from Emperor Owode, right? So I've seen that in RFEs sometimes. And guys, let's think about this. So sometimes we write petitions and USCIS is saying, this has merit, but we don't think it's going to benefit the US as a whole. It's going to benefit your employer, right? We have to be careful about the endeavors. And we have a lot more success when we use social endeavors that impact the guy on the street, right? So if your endeavor doesn't sound like it could impact the guy on the street, most likely they're going to be like, this is all about Amazon getting more money, right? If you work for Amazon, right? For example, Dr. Selman is proposing an endeavor that doesn't just impact Americans, but also there's an angle of it that has to do with minorities, right? There's the health equity part of it. So yeah, talk a little bit about that. Like, what kind of endeavor do you think would have more success? Now, we've written a lot of petitions. Like, we have over 100 approved petitions just that we've written. And then we're not even counting the ones where people have used our toolkits to write their petitions, because that's a lot more people. But in my experience, I find that when the endeavor can relate to the guy on the street, the guy on the street can feel the impact of what you're proposing, it has more success with that. And you can definitely reapply if you've been denied, right? But what do you think about your endeavor and just how you were able to show the national impact of it, and not just the fact that it's affecting just a few people in Virginia, but it actually cuts across the entire US, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I think try to, in my opinion, if I were the person, I would avoid talking too much about the company itself. And
Right.
I'm sure you have your own target group within the population. So first emphasize what's the need of, like, what are you working toward? And then from there you expand how
Right.
that group of people, that target, is playing within this ecosystem, and
Mm-hmm.
then how this ecosystem is crucial for the whole country. So I
Right.
think that, yeah, I would try to navigate like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that you talked about when you were reading out the different sections of your petition, you
Mhm.
talked about how this impacts the economy of the US, right?
Yeah,
You talked
because
about how does Mhm.
for
Yeah,
example, if it's just a dental caries, like for example, oh, I have a tooth decay,
yeah,
and then that can, if you're not treating it for the long period of time, that's going to cause like tremendous amount of, it's going to give financial burden to that
exactly.
family. And
Yeah.
then I think it's really important for us to see one problem from different aspects,
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
angles.
Yeah.
So you can definitely talk about financial burdens people can cause, and what else? Mm,
The
and
welfare aspect,
access,
the yeah,
yeah,
different
so on.
aspects of it. Yeah, public
Mhm.
health, public health aspect to it. So just again, I think a consultation will really clarify a whole lot of things for you because that will help you really target what should I be talking about in this petition? How do I lay it out, right? So guys, we have come to the end of this podcast episode. Unfortunately, I want to be able to free Dr. Selman because she has a newborn. I don't want to keep her too long on here just talking about this stuff. But thank you so much for coming on here to talk about this with us. I think it's very helpful for people, especially those who are planning to apply. This is something that you can do. I would say get a consultation sooner rather than later.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to get someone else to write it for you, right? So a lot of people say, "Oh, this might be too much money for me to spend." That's okay. Do it yourself, right? Get the DIY kit and do it yourself. But I would still say if you plan to do it yourself, that you get a consultation with someone who knows a lot about this and clarify things so you just know where you're headed with this. Okay. Dr. Selman, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was
Thank
an
you very much.
absolute pleasure meeting you when we did, your
Yeah.
family. Congratulations on all the amazing things happening for you. We're excited. Now I'm going to go watch that Outbacks on Netflix. Is it Outer Banks?
Outer
Um,
Banks.
Outer Banks. Yeah, I'm gonna go listen for the music because I know. I honestly I googled you after we spoke and you were like you released 2 albums. I was like I have to go listen to this music.
Uh,
you know. Um,
Anyways, yeah, thank you very much, and I hope everyone's going through this process smoothly. If you just take a consultation and review, you'll be all fine. So be confident. Just be
Be confident.
confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And bet on yourself. Bet on yourself. Honestly, if you don't bet on yourself, if someone says, "How am I sure I will get approved?" Well, you don't know that you'll get approved. That's the reason why you apply, right? But then in applying for this opportunity, you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward. And guys, before we go, let's just touch on AI, the use of AI for this process. Um, there are a lot of people who just put stuff into ChatGPT and just get things out, but make sure that even if when you use AI to assist you with your petition, that you humanize that application, right? Don't just take things, throw into AI, and then just send it to USCIS. They're getting really clever with that. So make sure that you can get assistance to write your petition, but make sure you get a second pair of eyes to go through those things and make sure that it actually sounds good and those references are verified before you actually turn things into to USCIS. Okay. So let's use AI responsibly to get the results that we desire. So thank you
And
so much,
Dr.
Selman.
Rosie, I think, Dr. Rosie, there was one question about spouses, like what happens with the spouse once you're the one who.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Go ahead with that.
Yeah, how about you? I think you're more expert on that. In
Oh,
my
I
case,
didn't see that question, but so in her case, she was F2, right?
I was too, yeah.
Yeah, let's even talk about are spouses of EB2 NIW holders able to work in the US? Spouses of EB2 NIW holders. So when you get your EB2, okay, let's talk about this, guys. When you get your EB2 approved, right? You get a US green card. Your spouse gets a green card at the end, right? So everyone is able to work, is no longer tied to any visa or anything like that. Now, the other flip part of it is in Dr. Selman's case, where she was actually or is actually in the US as a dependent to her husband who has the student visa, right? So now that she's gotten the EB2NIW I-140 approved, what happens now? She's still under F-2, right? So for EB2NIW, getting a green card through EB2NIW, there are two main steps. The first is the I-140 approval, which is about the person applying for it, in this case, Dr. Selman. After she gets approved, the second phase is called adjustment of status. At that point, she's able to add on all her dependents, her son, her
Yeah.
husband, on that petition, right? And they all get their green cards at the same time, right? They get a 10-year green card. And at the end of 10 years, I mean, after 5 years, you can choose to become a US citizen. But if you don't choose to become a US citizen, you can renew it like you're renewing a driver's license after 10 years. You pay a fee and get another 10-year card, basically, right? So that's what happens typically is when you get approved, you get at the end of the process, you get your
There's a
green
wait list.
card.
Like there is
Yes.
a wait list. You're approved, but
Yes.
still you need to wait.
Yeah. So, I mean, this just started like within the last couple of years. It used to be that when you're approved, immediately you apply for adjustment of status, right? But now, because there are a lot of more people who have heard about EB2, there's a little bit of a lag. There's a wait time. So they allow you to adjust status based on when you applied. So, for example, right now, they're allowing people who applied before the 15th of February 2023 to go ahead and start the second process, the second phase, right? That's why a lot of people who are qualified for EB1A are switching to EB1 and saying, hey, I'm going to apply for EB1 because with EB1, as soon as you get approved, that I-140 gets approved, you can continue with the remaining steps. There's no lag, there's no wait time, right? But people are kind of skeptical because EB1A has a higher, requirement. And again, it's an investment. You're going to spend money. So, people try, but here's what you need to know. Even if your EB1A application gets denied, it doesn't affect the already existing approved EB2NIW application that you already have, right? So these are some things that you have to weigh. I always tell people, make it a financial decision and bet on yourself, right? If you have the time. In this case, Dr. Selman has time. She didn't even pay for premium processing like a lot of people are doing. She's like, you know what, I can wait. So if you're one person who, hey, it's crunch time for you and you're qualified for both, then you can even, think about putting both applications in if that's something. But her status hasn't changed. She's still F2. Even if she was denied for EB2NIW, she was still going to be F2. They're not going to say, hey, you were denied for this thing you applied for. We're taking the F2 from you. No. She still continues with her F2 until maintain your non-immigrant status until you apply for adjustment of status, guys, right? Because USCIS, they can still give you an RFE or request for evidence and say, hey, show us that you were in status at the time you applied for adjustment of status. I've seen that happen multiple times. So make sure that you're not out of status. That principal person, your husband, continues to maintain that F1 or whatever non-immigrant status he maintains. Make sure that you guys are within that so that when it's time to adjust status, you can, go ahead and complete that.
Yeah. So basically, the spouses of the holder able to work because you're going to apply together.
Apply together. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's a long process. A lot of this immigration process is spent waiting. There's going to be a lot of waiting, and you want to make sure that before you even put in that application to wait, that you actually put in the best that you could, because then you're going to be waiting for something that you have some kind of hope.
Yeah, I think the wait time, it's actually very beneficial to us because we're relocating, we're coming to a complete new system, new society, new culture, how they network within this, industries. I think it's a good time for us to prepare and do research in our own, prepare ourselves. So yeah, it's a good time.
Very good time. And honestly, some people ask me, if I get approved, for example, in one field for EB2NIW, do I have to stay in that field the whole time I'm in the US? So if I'm in the US for the next 20 years, do I have to stay in that particular job I said I was going to do? And in my experience, for the most part, people tend to maintain their careers. But life happens, right? Sometimes you find that, yeah, you might need to take a break from work, go do something else. You have other interests coming up. For the most part, most people will stay in the general field. So, I mean, I'm not saying, like, for example, Dr. Tselmuun, very beautiful, has a beautiful voice, has gotten approved in dental sciences, right? And then tomorrow she's, oh, I'm going to go do modeling, right? You want to at least stay in the field for at least you get your green card, work in the field, give back in that field, and then you can go ahead and change. If life happens, they're not
Yeah.
coming to say you said you were going to do this, and you know no.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
one person just asked, can I, in my case, can I work with approved I-140? For now, no. With I-140, I cannot work because there is separate application that I
Yeah.
need to, submit after I-140. So
So
it's two.
remember that. Yeah, exactly. Remember that even if your I-140 has been approved, you're still an F-2 visa holder, right? So you still have to work based on the rules that pertain to that kind of visa that you have if you're in the US, right? Because you haven't adjusted status. You're still within that status that you initially had, right? It's people, for example, there are people who can work. For example, if you're an F1 OPT, right? Let's say you were doing your you got your employment authorization document, you were working on your OPT, and then your OPT is about to expire and you have an approved I-140. USCIS has kind of made available a route where you can apply for an EAD card based on compelling circumstances, right? So let's say your F1 OPT, you can apply for your extension. If you don't have an extension, you might be able to qualify for the compelling EAD card under compelling circumstances. However, make sure you understand what that entails, right? And the consequences of that, right? Because one of the consequences is that when indeed your priority date becomes current, you might not be able to do adjustment of status from within the US. So whatever aspects or whatever things that you're going to do next, make sure you fully understand the ramifications of that before you actually go into it, right? But for the most part, people will definitely maintain their whatever non-immigrant status they had until they turn in that application for adjustment of status. Now, at the point where you're adjusting your status, you can then apply for an EAD card on the basis of a pending immigrant petition. So USCIS is working on my petition. This might take too long. I'm going to apply for an employment authorization document. You can, and they can give you time to say, hey, go ahead and work for 2 years while we sort this adjustment of status. You can. So again, we typically don't give legal advice. If you want legal advice, you have to go talk to the attorneys. But for the most part, people have to maintain the eligibility requirements for the visas that they have until they're able to adjust their status, if that's helpful. All right. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining today. Dr. Selman, thank you so much. We wish you the very best. We're going to keep track with your career, and things like that. We want to know when you finally get that green card in hand and everything is completely over. We would like to hear about that.
Thank
but
you.
please, regards to your husband and your new baby, your son. Thank you so much for sharing your journey on the
Thank you
EB2NIW.
for having me. Thank you for having me. And I loved your services, and I hope, you'll continue. I love what you're doing. So just keep continuing, keep doing what you're doing. So,
Thank you
yeah.
so much. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, guys, and see you on the next one. Bye.